Manchester City versus Tottenham Hotspur. Um, a game of a lot of headlines entering it, discussing potentially Tottenham helping out their arch rivals in Arsenal, Manchester City having to win this game to win the Premier League, because essentially this is a game, if they dropped points in, if they lost, they make it so difficult for themselves entering the last week. And if they drew, then they would rely on goal differential, which is heavy towards Arsenal entering this game. But winning this game 2-0, puts them back on top of the Premier League with 88 points, 2 points ahead of Arsenal, 2 points ahead of Arsenal, and now they control their own destiny. In the final week, they beat Aston Villa at the Etihad. They are the Premier League champions, and that's thanks to today's game. In a game that I thought in the first half was a little bit of little shaky for Manchester City. You saw a little nerves for Manchester City, not wanting to mess this up. A few passes that went astray, a few bad moments lost in possession in bad areas, not really looking fluid throughout the entire team. Tottenham, both teams playing ridiculously high lines like they did, especially in that first half. You saw in the first half, Tottenham really played very, very compact, and they allowed City to spring it out wide to Kyle Walker. I feel like Tottenham went entering this game thinking, or their philosophy was, we make it compact, we get rid of any passing lane he may have, and we allow Kyle Walker to be on the ball, because he is, when you could look at this Manchester City team, he is one of the weaker guys on the ball, especially in that position, putting in a cross and all that. He really, really struggled. He played in a few bad balls early in the game. Then he had another one where he rifled it in. I thought that was one of his better balls. But they allowed the width to be, for there to be space on the width for Manchester City. And Manchester City did a good job moving the ball from one end of the pitch to another, opening up that Tottenham defense. They just couldn't get that breakthrough. And Tottenham, they also had a few of their opportunities. Bentancur had one on the counter after Højbjerg played a delicious diagonal ball into, I believe it was Brennan Johnson. And then Brennan Johnson hit Bentancur, who Ederson was saved. And, this game, there was a lot of goalkeepers that made some important saves. And it was shaky, ending the first half. The second half starts, and City were able to find their breakthrough with the City-esque goal. Erling Haaland, with his biggest goal of the season up to this point, scored the goal that happened after De Bruyne hits him on a low cross from close range, and then Haaland taps it into an empty net. And then it seemed like, okay, Manchester City, that was the sign of relief. And, we just thought everything would be smooth sailing from there. But Tottenham did have their opportunities. Tottenham had opportunities, and Ederson had to come off of an injury due to a nasty head injury. He was very, very frustrated and agitated as he was walking off. Seemed like the training staff is the one that wanted him off. It was potential head injury, whether it was the fact that it was a potential head injury and they're just looking at it from a safety point of view, or they think Ortega coming in gives us a better chance than Ederson, who does seem hobbled. But Ortega came in and he made a miraculous, important, game-changing saves. And there was an opportunity with a couple with Kulusevski running in between the Manchester City defenders, and Ortega being able to save it with his leg. And then there was a one-on-one opportunity Son had after a mistake. I believe it was from Akanji, and Son went in, and Ortega came up with the save one-on-one. And again, I mean, Pep Guardiola said this after the game. If we do become Premier League champions, it is because of Stefan Ortega, or he said something of that sort. He said, or he said Stefan Ortega saved the Premier League for us. And you know what? You could argue that because those were two massive saves that he had to make. And it was so unlike Man City that they would even concede those kind of opportunities. But at the end of the day, Man City always finds a way to get it out in these fine margins in the Premier League when they need the games down the stretch. When you look at it, when they looked down and out, going up against Leicester City, the second to final match day, Vincent Kompany is the one that, drilled it out of nowhere to give them the lead in the late in the game, and that ended up helping them, or that ended up winning the Premier League title essentially. And they needed that sort of moment in this game, but not from Vincent Kompany. It came from Stefan Ortega, because those saves were massive. I mean, if Son is able to get that one-on-one to go through, I mean, we're looking at a whole different landscape entering the final match day of the Premier League. It's heartbreaking for Arsenal fans when you see that. Maybe it adds a little bit of an element to them not hating Spurs even more than they currently do, which I don't know if it's possible. The atmosphere, in my opinion, was not the greatest of atmospheres. We'll cover more on that in the later segments when we talk about Postecoglou's comments. But it didn't really seem like Tottenham fans were really that much into the game. And it was a little bit of not a dead atmosphere, but, not the greatest of atmospheres. We saw Postecoglou, discussing with one of the Spurs fans, telling him which side are you on. Again, we'll reach this point later on. We'll talk about that. I don't want to touch too much on it right now, but regarding the game, I mean, I can't put into words how important of this game was for Manchester City. If you look at it, this was really their last heavy block entering that week, the last week game of the season, because West Ham at Etihad, they fully expect to win that game and to win it quite comfortably. I mean, this is Manchester City we're talking about, and this was kind of the last test. But you know what, Tottenham, they did put up a fight. Tottenham, like the previous games, when you looked at the games against that they've lost in this bad streak that they're in currently. There's some games where they were just out of it. This game was not like that. They played pretty well. They generated chances. They defended well at times, but they just couldn't get over the line. I mean, when you look at the stats, 10 stats to Tottenham, 8 shots to City, 5 shots on target to Tottenham, 5 shots on City. They outpossessed Manchester City, which me was remarkable when I think about that. 54% possession to 46% for Manchester City. They played a very good game, and they played a disciplined game, and the game that maybe they should have got more out of, but they couldn't get that ball into the back of the net while Erling Haaland was able to. And then, but after that breakthrough goal on the counter, Phil Foden plays a sublime, it's an absolutely beautiful ball played into Jeremy Doku. Jeremy Doku, in a one-on-one situation, is a nightmare situation to be in. And Radu Draguzin, I'm trying to pronounce his name correctly, gets his back turned in a split-second moment, and as he turns around, he reaches in with his foot, catches Doku, and then Erling Haaland drills it in, gives no chance for Vicario. 2-0 Manchester City, and you could tell by the adrenaline, the way that they were celebrating, the way that they were screaming, those Manchester City players felt their fingertips on that title after that goal. They felt their fingertips on that trophy, and you could tell by the celebrations, not just from them, but also from Guardiola after the goal. You saw Guardiola, whenever Akanji made the mistake, falling on the ground, but then seeing that it was saved and standing back up. actually reminded me last year when they went away to Liverpool at Anfield earlier in the season, a struggling Liverpool team. João Cancelo, I believe it was João Cancelo, ended up making a mistake at about the halfway point. Salah was able to get on the end of it, and Salah went through one-on-one and put it away. And that exact same reaction happened from Pep Guardiola, where he fell to the ground, but he couldn't stand back up in relief. In that situation, it ended up being a goal, and Liverpool ended up winning that game. In a situation where they needed that to happen for them to win the Premier League, Ortega makes the stop. Manchester City get by the same way Manchester City always gets by, as they are one of the best teams in Premier League history.